Hey, you got my letter. Oh God, I needed that hug. Even if it did just seriously hurt me. No, I'm fine. You didn't hug too tight, I'm just, a little bruised at the moment. What I've been through since you've been gone, I've got quite the story to tell. How are you anyway? Are you okay? No, God, no, I didn't get into trouble because of you. I know I said being with you might be a problem, so that's why we have to be secret like this, but no, it had nothing to do with you. No, actually, that's a lie. It's had everything to do with you. Sorry, I think I might be a bit concussed still, but just listen. After what happened, I am very relieved, and contrary to the story I'm about to tell you, I am very much not in trouble. Oh, you noticed, did you? Ow. Yeah, it's still kind of fresh. You won't find me unattractive with this now, will you? Because, if that's the case, I can always cover it up with makeup or something. No, that's good. That's really good. To be honest, some of my friends in the wolf pack, they actually said it looks really cool. It's kind of like a badge of honor, Big old scar going down the side of my face. It shows me to be a man who fought for something. Shows me to be somebody who didn't back down when things got rough. When the call to honor was warranted. Yeah, God, I'm sorry. I keep digressing. Of course I'm going to tell you. Of course I'm happy to tell you. God, you word things so sweetly. You're so considerate, aren't you? Okay. What went on is gonna sound absolutely horrendous, but it's a much better world for it. At least in my perspective. Maybe not a better world, but it's a better. I'm in a better situation after what happened, and I'm gonna tell you right now. Naturally, being a part of the human world, you'd have no idea of the goings-on within the wolf world. But basically, I fought for the one I love. I fought for you. Sorry, yeah, I'll stop being so vague. Basically, what happened was, I finally told my dad about you. I told my father I was seeing a human, and I also told him I was not romantically interested in the person he'd picked out to be my marriage partner, to be my betrothed. I told him I was not going to go through with the arranged marriage, and well, I told him no, basically. My betrothed is a kind, fearless warrior, but she's not you, and that was too much of a problem. I didn't love them, and I have to be true with myself. It's one of my major flaws. I just can't lie, and I certainly can't live a lie either. I approached my father, and I was very polite when I did, but like I said, I just told him the truth. I told him I was in love with you, a human, and I wasn't going to go through with what was expected of me. You see, in the wolf world, rebellion, though punishable, isn't considered a bad thing. My father actually looked at me quite warmly, with quite the grin. And I gotta be honest with you, I don't think he's ever been more proud of me than in that moment, knowing I had a true wolf warrior heart, and I stood up to him. That moment, in his eyes, I became a man. He could have killed me then and there, and I knew that. I knew I'd be deserving of that. And yet, I still went through with it. See now, wolf people, being naturally fighters, that sort of thing goes down very well. However, though I just made my dad and the rest of the pack very proud, what I technically just did was a form of treason. I don't know if I told you this, but I'm not just a normal wolf man. I'm a wolf prince. And, well, I'm the heir to the throne of my pack. So, going against my father is technically going against the crown, and going against the crown is very much punishable by death. Now, before you panic, just listen to how this story unfolds, okay? As you can see, I'm quite clearly not dead, so quite clearly there's going to be a reasonable ending, okay? So just wait. No, God, you're right. Yeah, I probably should have mentioned that I was, well, technically royalty from the get-go. It somehow managed to slip my mind that I was a prince. I guess I just wanted you to love me for me, you know? And you do, so, yeah. And plus, the fact that I'm a wolf prince has absolutely no bearing on the fact that, you know, I'm in love with you. It also doesn't affect the human world in the slightest, so, you know, I just didn't consider it noteworthy to mention it to you. I guess you're right, I probably should have. But the thing is, like I said, it has no bearing on the human world, so I didn't want to bore you with politics. Even if the politics I'm boring you with is a very crucial and vital part of my... I just didn't want to scare you, okay? I'm just going to be honest. I just didn't want to scare you. I think I got used to the fact that being a prince meant that people were going to treat me differently. In the wolf world, if I tell anyone from another pack that I'm a prince, they either kidnap me or try and kill me. If I speak to anyone in my own pack, they either know me extremely well already, or if they don't, they try and marry me off to their daughter or something. Being a prince in the wolf world is so... it's so difficult. Because it feels like it's the only part of my identity that actually matters. But when I'm with you, me being a prince didn't matter. And I guess I just wanted to keep it that way. And I didn't want to scare you. And I also didn't really want to bore you. I know I can tell you anything. I know I can. I love you. Anyway, after I did what I did, even though my father was extremely proud of me and, well, so was my pack, they couldn't just bend the rules for me. They, had to condemn me to death. Legally. I'm sure you understand. But, because what I did was technically considered a violent act, they could potentially make an exception. There's a small caveat in our law book. Basically, a violent act can be met with a violent choice. And that choice is either, well, death or combat. Usually it's death by combat, but if you win, you do win the right to be completely absolved of all of your crimes. If that was the case, then technically they wouldn't need to kill me, and depending on how my dad feels, which at the time looked very promising, I could be allowed to marry you, and I wouldn't have to marry my betrothed. No, in our world we don't do banishment. Banishment would have been nice. In fact, that would have been really easy, because I could have just left and, you know, me and you could have lived happily ever after. But yeah, we don't have banishment. Usually it's death or death. Slightly more eccentric death. But the thing is, I was ready to fight for you, and I was ready to fight my father. Alpha versus Alpha. It was going to be quite the battle. Our bloodline frequently bred extremely strong warrior wolves, and my dad, well, to this day, is considered one of the greatest fighters of all time, especially when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. Don't get me wrong, I'm not much weaker than him, but I'm definitely not as skilled. My dad is a very dangerous man, and challenging him, well, it's almost certainly going to result in death. The vast majority of people who get that option actually choose death over fighting my dad. That's what kind of a man he is. Anyway, this all sounds so paradoxical, but after I accepted his challenge to combat, God, he looked at me almost tearful. He was so happy that I was willing to fight him to the death. I know I don't seem like it, and frankly, I've always kind of been the odd one out in my pack, but our pack are equivalent to your... what were those people you told me about that go around smashing things up? Vikings, yeah. We are very similar to Vikings, where war and violence are not just a thing to be used as a tool for conquest, but a thing to be treasured. To us, violence and war, well, it's actually a beautiful thing in many ways. I understand that it's certainly not in the human world, but to us it's... yeah, this dynamic between me and my father that's evolving, this, prelude to a big battle, it was beautiful, and it was bringing a tear to many of his court's eyes. They were truly so happy that me and my dad were about to try and kill each other. Now that sounds crazy, but I have quite a crazy culture. That's a good question. How did my betrothed take all of this? What was her thoughts? Well, this situation between me and my dad, it was partly, cultivated by her. It evolved from a conversation me and her had. You see, about a week ago, I was forced to go on a mandatory date with her, and she took me somewhere very secluded. Naturally, I was scared she was intending for something more to happen, which I would never do, of course, because obviously I'm in love with you. So when we got to the secluded place, I had to just be honest with her. I told her the sad truth was, I was in love with you, and I could never truly love her like the way she deserves. I told her that she was wonderful, and that she was kind, and that she was so deserving of love, but I had to be honest. Like I said, I can never lie. And I said, I'm in love with a human. My heart belongs to them. And it would never work between us. And I would never be able to do what I thought she wanted to do in that moment. However, I was remarkably mistaken by what that moment was. She took me to a secluded location to tell me the exact same damn thing. After I told her what I told her about you, she started laughing, and I assumed it was a menacing laugh and she was going to kill you or something like that, but basically she said how relieved she was. You see, my betrothed herself had actually fallen in love with a human as well. A human woman. My betrothed was not interested in men in the slightest, and she was very, very happy to be with her human female partner. And I could not tell you how happy I was in that moment, and how funny it was in that moment. And yeah, it was really, really lucky that it evolved in that sense. But still, her father, a lord in my pack, and my father, the king, they were forcing us to get married. And we both had people that kept us from doing that. Not that I'm saying, that was a bad thing. It was a good thing, but we couldn't. And we didn't know what to do. So I did the brave thing, and I told her, I'm just going to tell my dad. Woe betide the consequences, I'm just going to tell my dad. She didn't like that idea, because she said it would almost certainly result in my death, but I said, what else could we do? She said fake it. She said we could fake it, pretend to be married on the outside, but on the inside, we part ways and go and see our true loves. But I couldn't do that. I couldn't live a lie like that. She's a stronger person than me, I'll tell you that for a fact. And her girlfriend is a very lucky girl. But I'm not like that. I have to be honest. So I decided that I was going to tell him regardless. And I was going to hope that it would result in combat, because then I'd have a chance. But I'm so bad at lying. But yeah, so that's the story of my betrothed. Basically, she was 100% on board for this like you could not believe. She just didn't want me to die in the process. Anyway, on to the battle. My dad had a ring set up in the middle of the court. I was expecting it to take a little longer than 20 minutes, as I was so not prepared for this, but it didn't. And, well, we were fighting right then and there. Pretty much the whole of the pack crammed into his court, making it a veritable arena within basically half an hour. This was going to happen, and this was going to be one of the biggest things to happen in our village in a very long time. The bell rang, and me and my dad started to fight. I got a few good licks in here and there, but it was then established and evident to me that whilst I was getting those licks in, he was just getting warmed up. And when he was warmed up, wow, he beat me within an inch of my life. My ribs were cracked, there's still pieces of my knee floating around my leg. I think he broke my jaw, and I pretty much can't see the same out of my left eye. Well, I can, it's just, it goes blurry whenever I try to look at anything further than 2 feet away. He really did quite the number on me. It would appear 51 years of tried and tested battle knowledge and experience was definitely a match for 23 years of just training. It kind of made everything I did to him look completely and utterly useless. My skill, my abilities, they were utterly diminutive in his presence. The fight, it was all but won. I was a bloody mess on the floor. I could barely stand, hell, I could barely breathe. And I was about to accept my fate. I was about to let him crush my skull, and that'd be the end of it. But then, a little voice in my head told me to keep fighting. It told me to never give up. Not until I truly was done. So I stood back up. I mustered every ounce of strength I had. And I stood back up. With broken bones, no energy, heavy blood loss, frankly, a concussion that has lasted days. I fought him. I attempted to grapple him. The crowd was cheering. Everyone was on my side. I pushed through the pain, and I had suffered beyond comprehension, and yet I wasn't going to back down. And they loved it. They love that moment. You see, in my culture, that is the very essence of being a wolf, to never give up, even when failure is a 99% possibility. Even when you've already lost, never give up. I wrapped my arms around my dad's neck, too weak, too broken to do anything but hang from him. And he smiled. He whispered in my ear, "Can you hear who they're cheering for? Can you hear your name?" I looked up at him. He said, "Do you know what that means?" I looked confused. To be honest, I could barely hear him, my ears were ringing. But he said, "That means you are the king now." And he tapped me on the arm 3 times, declaring a surrender. And I won. You see, in that moment, it dawned on me. My dad, he wasn't trying to kill me. He wasn't trying to hurt me. This wasn't a punishment. No, what he was doing was teaching me a lesson. And that lesson was being a king doesn't mean you have to be the best fighter. It doesn't mean you have to be the strongest. It doesn't mean you have to be the most dangerous. What being a king means is that you have to have unwavering resolve. It means no matter how hard things get, you get back up and you keep fighting. Because that's what's required of a king. To take care of your people, you have to never give in. And I learned that. And then I dropped to the floor and sunk into a coma for 2 days. You know, for a bunch of big, tough, scary wolves, my pack really can cry. You have no idea the energy in the room when my dad tapped out like that. When my dad made that sacrifice. When he gave up his title for me. Well, that battle between father and son, that encompassed all that was wolf. And my people, gosh, they really showed me they were my people. No, my dad wasn't executed for what he did. My people adored my dad for his sacrifice, so naturally I've had to keep him on as my advisor. Technically, even though I sit at the throne, he's very much still the ruler. I don't know the first thing about running a kingdom, but I will do, with his tutelage. It's weird how things work in my world. You see, I was going to win the title of king after this anyway, but if a king dies in combat, you are simply absolved of your crimes. But if a king surrenders, you are given the throne. You know, my dad, he's very eager to meet you. You're the person who pushed his son from being a boy to a man. In fact, I take it a step further, you pushed me from being a prince to a king. And he's very, very eager to meet you. On good terms, of course. Don't be threatened. I guess what I'm saying ultimately though is, do you want to come back home with me? Do you want to meet my family and maybe one day become wolf royalty? I know that sounds crazy, and don't get me wrong, it wouldn't be easy. You'd get leered at by the purists, and people would call you names behind your back, but people do that to everybody anyway. Eventually, though, they'll come to love you, as I did. If not, I totally understand, you can go back to your town, and that's that. But just know, I love you, and we don't need to hide our love anymore. And you are more than welcome to accompany me back to my castle, where you will always have a home. Of course I have a castle. I'm a king, remember? I love you more. I love you so much. I'm sorry for presenting myself in such a battered and bruised form for you. But I had to tell you. I had to tell you the truth, and I had to tell you our love is no longer a secret. And that is so goddamn good to say. What do you think of all of this? How do you feel? Overwhelmed? Scared? But above all, more in love than anything. I love you. I love you so much. It was hard, but having you to fight for, well, I'd do it again, 1,000 times over. Maybe not 1,001 times over because it was quite painful, but 1,000 times over for sure. God, I love you. I'm sorry if this is all so overwhelming, but it's up to you now. Did you want to come back with me, or do you want to go back home? You're more than welcome to do whatever you want, but I have to go back to my people, whatever happens. I'll take that as a yes. I'm so glad you said yes. We've had a place saved for you at our table. We've also brought round some special chefs to cook for you. Yeah, we kind of planned that you'd come back, but, you know, I just wanted to make it completely and utterly organic. I didn't want to force you. My dad's really, really eager to meet you. In fact, my entire pack is eager to meet you. Like I said as well, there are some people that will be a bit funny about a human walking into a wolf pack. But after that show I put on, after the sacrifice I made, after that moment between me and my dad, well, I think that fight earned me and you both a lot of respect. God, I love you so much. Let's get going. God, I can't wait to introduce my mate to the pack. I've wanted to do this for so long. I'm so happy right now. Oh God, I'm so sorry, I called you my mate, didn't I? That's really intimate in our culture. That would be the equivalent of calling you my fiancé in your human world. I'm sorry, was that too far? No, it was just right. Does that mean you'd accept a proposal if I asked you? I love you so much.